Good evening. Thanks for joining us on Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. The Sensex and the Nifty hit a record high after 14 months. Both markets give up most of their gains, end barely in the green though. Bank stocks lead the rally today. The government is all set to fast-track the incentive scheme to bolster rare earth manufacturing. Sources say the notification is likely in 15 days. Bids will be invited over the next 2 months. That's an exclusive. A NITI panel proposes scrapping licenses, permits and no objection certificates in a regulatory overhaul. Sources say a high-level committee is proposing prior approvals only for high-risk cases involving national security, public safety and environmental harm. That's another exclusive. Tata Power is likely to resume production at its Mundra plant 6 months after suspending operations due to poor demand. The Gujarat government reaches an in-principle understanding on a supplementary power purchase agreement. Sources say Tata Power could use this as a precedent for pacts with other states. The Income Tax Department launches a new initiative asking taxpayers to disclose foreign assets acquired in FY25 by the end of December. The Tax Department identifies high-risk cases where foreign assets appear to exist but have not been reported so far. Tech giant Apple takes India's competition regulator to court, challenges the law allowing penalties of up to 10% of global turnover for market dominance. The law exposes the company to a potential penalty of $38 billion. Apple's global smartphone shipment could outpace Samsung for the first time in 14 years. Counterpoint Research says the positive response to the iPhone 17 series is a major catalyst. At least 55 people dead and hundreds missing after an apartment complex in Hong Kong goes up in flames. The blaze tears through 7 of the 8 tower blocks. 3 construction company executives arrested so far. 2 U.S. soldiers shot and critically wounded near the White House after an attack by a lone gunman rattles Washington. Officials identify the suspect as an Afghan national who's currently in custody. The U.S. stops processing immigration requests from Afghanistan after the attack. Ahmedabad gets ready for a massive infrastructure makeover ahead of the 2030 Commonwealth Games. Big opportunity for developers with land near game venues, athlete village and Cree transport corridors. The airport link development could boost inbound travel and demand for hotels as well. Well, let's start with the day's market action. The Sensex and the Nifty did hit a record high, but then finally closed the day largely flat. The Sensex crossing 86,000 and the Nifty surpassing the 26,300 mark for the first time, closing absolutely flat. 110 points higher on the Sensex, though, coming off its intraday high. The Nifty Bank up by about 200 points and flat close for the Nifty mid-cap as well. Bank stocks, as you saw there, leading the rally. Hormuz is standing by to decode what triggered the rally today. Hormuz hitting new highs, but finally closing off the intraday lows.
It finally happened, didn't it? And 14 months is what it took. 27th of September of 24 was last time when the Nifty was at these levels, and we finally managed to cross that. But the bigger talking point is that from the lows that we made in 2025, which was in April this year, the index is up 19%, yet we remain underperformers compared to the rest of the globe. You talk about contributors, the usual suspects of Bharat Electronics, Bajaj Finance, SBI, but Eicher Motors is the top gainer here, gains of anywhere between 25 to 45%. But the losers are the bigger here. Trent, Street Darling at one point of time has almost halved. Bajaj Auto, Coal India, TCS, NTPC, all of them down anywhere between 25 to 30% in the last 14 months. But if you take a look at the gainers from the April lows, you see BEL is up almost 50%, but the post-GST rally seen in M&M is the talking point here. Eternal has done well, as has Geo Financial Services. But if the Nifty made record highs, the broader markets is where the pain lies. The mid-cap index has done precious little over the last 14 months. The small-cap index is down 7%. And more than the gainers, you look at the losers here. You look at the mid-cap losers, Colgate is down 42%, as is IndusInd Bank, no longer a part of the Nifty. Tata Tech, another hyped IPO, down 40%. RVLN and Ireda, the high-flying PSU stocks of 2023 and a better part of 24 as well, down 40% each. The picture in the small-cap space is even more grim. Ola Electric is down 60, as is Tejas Networks. You look at Jindal Saw, add another 11% to Whirlpool's 46% drop. So overall, the Nifty may have made a record high, but it is the broader markets where the actual underperformance and the actual pain lies.
All right, many thanks, Hormuz, for joining us. Moving from the equity market action to the rupee, largely steady against the dollar in trade today. The currency remains closer to its record low and above the 89 mark against the greenback. Now, last night, the International Monetary Fund reclassified the rupee to what it calls a crawl-like arrangement after the currency moved more freely. Sources in the money market say a crawling peg is closer to a market-determined rate. The fund went on to say that India is well positioned to allow greater flexibility in its currency, which would help absorb external shocks. The Finance Ministry said that India's economy is on a stable footing on the back of encouraging inflation expectations, sustained public capex and strong rural and urban demand. The Ministry's monthly economic report highlighted that the economy is positioned to navigate emerging risks and preserve its growth momentum through the remaining months of this fiscal year. The report further highlights that global uncertainties, including shifting trade policies, geopolitical frictions and financial market volatility, are potential headwinds. The Ministry of Statistics has given us a glimpse of the main changes in store when the GDP, inflation and IIP will be calculated on the revised base year of FY23 from the current base year of FY12. Lata joins us now with the major changes in the formula. Lata, what will this mean? What can we expect?
Oh, well, the conference gave us a lot of fodder saying how they are going to, the MOSPI, the Ministry of Statistics, is going to increase its sources and improve the methodology of calculation of GDP, CPI and IIP. Just remember, the base year is going to be changed from the earlier 2011-12, or rather the current 2011-12. The new base year will be 22-23. But the first CPI will be announced only on Feb 12. Which means two monetary policies don't have to bother about a new CPI. The budget also will not have to bother about a newly calculated GDP. You know, it can throw things out of gear. So both the next two policies and the budget are out of danger of any, numbers being rewritten. The big changes that MOSPI announced is that for non-financial, that is manufacturing and such other companies, they are going to use corporate data activity-wise and not enterprise-wise as it is currently used. Very quickly, to give you an example, for instance, Maruti would be originally and in the counted as manufacturing, but now they will take out manufacturing. If they're doing any trading, they will treat it separately and put it in the appropriate categories in the GDP. Now, this could mean that manufacturing may look a little smaller when the new series comes, but there are this kind of fine-tuning that they're doing. The other thing that the MOSPI said is that they're going to use GST data to corroborate the corporate sector data in terms of revenue, etc. And the GST data will also be used for regional allocation of the GVA. Now, last couple of years, the Ministry of Statistics has also started unincorporated companies survey that is called as-used survey. That will be used to give for the annual GDP calculation the amount coming from the informal sector. You know, the formal sector GDP is counted quite easily. Informal sector will be counted through this. But this data will not be available quarterly. Only the annual GDP can be done on this fashion. The quarterly GDP will only extrapolate the informal from the formal as it does these days. The MOSPI has also told us that for manufacturing, they will use double deflation. There was a lot of criticism about the single deflation. That is, they will deflate output prices, input prices, and then give you the exact value add in the manufacturing space. But for the non-manufacturing space, they will have to continue with either the single deflation method or what they call the single extrapolation method, which is still a very sophisticated and internationally accepted method of calculating value add. Very quickly, coming to CPI, the Ministry of Statistics said that they're enhancing the number of markets, towns and items that they are covering. They're going to include fresh administrative data as well as online data. That's very important. That's a new set of data that they're going to include, since so many of us buy so many things online. Also, they're going to give more granular details. So the number of items for which you will get CPI will be more. The new CPI release, which will come on February 12, 2026, will therefore even look very different because there will be more items. Coming to IIP, the focus is again going to be more healthy sources. For every item, they want at least 4 factories, establishments producing it. And also, they're going to continue to replace, if one factory is not giving them data or it has become non-operational, they will quickly replace it in real time with another factory so that the data is always robust. There is a new way of calculating, more robust real-time way of calculating called chain-based indices. that is work in progress. Eventually, that and seasonally adjusted IIP will also come, become available to us.
All right, Lata, many thanks for joining us. GDP, CPI and IIP all set for a change. Now, the Income Tax Department has launched a fresh drive to track down high-risk undisclosed foreign assets. Timsy standing by with the latest. Timsy, take us through what the Tax Department now intends doing.
Well, the Income Tax Department has introduced, again, a second drive towards undisclosed foreign assets. They said that this is, again, a non-intrusive measure that the government is taking, and this second drive is now called Nudge. It will be on the entire December. The drive ends on 31st December, and they say that they already have a list of about 25,000 high-risk cases that will be targeted through non-intrusive measures, asking them to come up clean on their undisclosed foreign assets. And to be fair, they say, according to sources, what we pick up from the tax department is that the big corporates whose employees have foreign assets and have not disclosed are also onboarded towards sensitizing. They've also onboarded ICAI and many other tax professionals organizations, asking them to speak to their clients, to come on board, take the benefit of this particular drive. And just to remind you, last year again in December, the government had come up with similar drive where they identified about 1,080 cases, which raised a demand of about 40,000 crore rupees till June 2025. So Income Tax Department saying that there is a non-intrusive drive that has been started again against undisclosed foreign assets which have been identified by them through the automatic exchange of information through various countries in financial year 2025, and sources say that they already have a data of about 25,000 such high-risk cases. And if these 25,000 people do not take up this opportunity, then what comes to their demand? Well, Black Money Act prescribes penalty of 10 lakh rupees on non-disclosure of foreign asset, apart from tax of 30% and penalty of 300%, and other consequential other measures such as searches, etc., which government has already taken in cases who did not come clean in the last drive. So this is another measure to try and unearth foreign assets under Black Money Act, which are still yet to be recovered and yet to be identified under the income tax returns. Let's see what happens in this particular drive, which will be on for a month.
All right, Timsy, many thanks for joining us. Now, Tata Power is likely to resume production at its Mundra plant 6 months after suspending operations due to poor demand. Sources tell us that the Gujarat government has reached an in-principle understanding with the company on a supplementary power purchase agreement. Tata Power could use this as a precedent for pacts with other states. Shares of Whirlpool India declined after 11.8% of the equity changed hands via block deal. Sources tell us that the company's promoter, Whirlpool Mauritius, is likely to have sold 7.5% equity worth around 980 crore rupees. The floor price of the deal was set at about 1,000 rupees per share. Now, the Reserve Bank has granted a certification of authorization to Paytm Payment Services, the entity owned by Paytm's parent 197 Communications. It can now operate as a payment aggregator. The company had applied for the permit in March 2020. However, the approval was stuck due to certain compliance-related issues on account of foreign investments in the company. The Enforcement Directorate has arrested online money gaming platform Winzo's founders on allegations of money laundering. Soumya Singh Rathore and Pawan Nanda were arrested after being questioned at the zonal office of the Federal Probe Agency. They were initially sent to a one-day custody after being produced before a local court. The arrest comes after the ED's recent searches at Winzo's premises. The government will notify the 7,300 crore rupee rare earth permanent magnet manufacturing scheme in the next 15 days. Sources tell CNBC TV 18. The government could invite bids for the scheme by the 31st of January. Parikshit is standing by with the details. Parikshit.
Well, the government is likely to notify the scheme for manufacturing rare earth magnets in 15 days. Thereafter, the government could invite bids for the scheme by 31st of January next year. Interested bidders will have to submit a detailed project report to show that they are technically capable. They have either indigenous expertise or they have global technology tie-ups to deliver on the promises they are making. An interministerial group supported by India Rare Earth Limited, Baba Atomic Research Centre and CSIR will soon be set up to frame the bid criteria, and this interministerial group will choose and select the applications also. Startups, established companies, first-time players are all likely to be invited to bid for the scheme. All applicants would be free to have global tie-ups for technology, but must manufacture in India. The government may consider companies who can invest rupees 1,500 crores in setting up a plant for 12,000 ton of rare earth permanent magnets. Smaller players who can set up capacity for 600 tons of permanent magnets may also be considered. During the consultation phase, 25 companies, including magnet makers, automotive component manufacturers, participated in the meetings. As of now, companies like Entellus, Ashwini Magnets and Midwest make rare earth materials in India, but no one does it at the scale that is really needed, or where you can say there is import substitution. The government seeks to establish rare earth permanent magnet manufacturing facilities in India and build a domestic supply chain to reduce reliance on Chinese imports. In order to strengthen domestic supply chains, Department of Atomic Energy has also asked state-owned India Rare Earth Limited to expand capacity for manufacturing NdPr oxide, which is a crucial raw material for manufacturing rare earth magnets.
All right, Parikshit, many thanks for joining us. Apple has moved the Delhi High Court challenging India's amended antitrust penalty regime. The iPhone maker told the court that the law may be subject to as much as $38 billion in fines. This, as the new regime allows the Competition Commission of India to impose penalties of up to 10% based on a company's global turnover rather than its revenue from India. So Apple taking CCI to court. And staying with news from Apple, it is set to ship more iPhones this year, more than its rival Samsung for the first time in 14 years. Counterpoint Research tells CNBC TV 18 that the iPhone maker will ship around 243 million units this year. In comparison, Samsung's estimate of 235 million units. Apple is also likely to end up with a 19.5% share of the global smartphone market, while Samsung's share will be at 18.7%. Car Trade has said that its proposed deal to acquire Car Deco will not move forward. In a statement, the company said that the two companies had mutually decided not to proceed with the proposed transaction at this stage. The transaction was estimated at over $1.2 billion. Remember, CNBC TV 18 had confirmed that Car Trade was in talks to acquire Car Deco and Bike Deco, that deal falling through. Let's take a short break, but up next, at least 55 people dead and hundreds missing after an apartment complex in Hong Kong goes up in flames. That and more when we return. A panel constituted by NITI Aayog has proposed scrapping licenses, permits and no objection certificates. Sources tell us that the panel has recommended third-party and risk-based inspections. Shivani joins us now with more details of the proposed changes. Shivani.
Well, yes, sources have told CNBC TV 18 that a high-level NITI Aayog panel led by former Cabinet Secretary Rajiv Gauba has called for a complete end to what is described in the country as the inspection Raj. The committee has recommended scrapping most licenses, permits and NOCs except in high-risk areas like national security, public safety, health and the environment as well. Under the proposed framework, routine inspections will now move to accredited third parties selected through risk-based computer-generated systems. That's what sources are telling us. Now, the panel is also pushing a new trust-based approach, the Jan Vishwas Siddhant, where any activity not explicitly prohibited by law will not need prior approval. It has also called for stable policies and tax regimes and for every regulation to clearly state the compliance cost for businesses and enforcement burden on the government. And in a major shift, the committee also has proposed that criminal penalties reserved only for serious offences, including threats to national security, fraud or major environmental harm, with a full review of all such provisions across laws. If these proposals are accepted, of course, these are right now just on the proposal stage, they could mark a significant reset in how businesses operate in India and how India regulates its businesses. Back to you.
Shivani, many thanks for joining us. The big international story, at least 55 people have died and hundreds are missing after an entire apartment complex caught fire last night. Officials allege that bamboo scaffolding and foam material used during maintenance work might have caused the rapid spread of the fire. The fire tore through 7 of the 8 tower blocks of the building. Firefighters were continuously trying to douse the fire, attempting to rescue the trapped residents inside the burning building. This incident has been touted as the deadliest fire in Hong Kong in decades. Authorities have said that the firefighters managed to put out the fire in 4 buildings and operations were continuing in the remaining 3. A task force has been set up to investigate the cause of the blaze. 3 men from the construction company, including 2 directors and 1 engineering consultant, have been arrested. Ukraine claims Russia has carried out 41 airstrikes, dropping more than 100 guided bombs across the country. Kyiv has also said it hit a Russian plant involved in missile and drone production, along with several other military positions. This comes as the Kremlin called on the US brokered peace talks serious, but warned that Moscow would offer no major concessions to Kyiv. 2 US soldiers were shot and have been critically wounded near the White House after an attack by a lone gunman rattled Washington. Officials have identified the suspect as an Afghan national who is currently in custody. The Trump administration has stopped processing immigration requests from Afghanistan after the attack. President Trump has asked Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi to dial down her stance on Taiwan. As per reports, both leaders spoke over a phone call where Trump told the Japanese leader to not escalate tensions with Beijing. This comes after Prime Minister Takaichi sparked a diplomatic row by suggesting that a Chinese attack on Taiwan threatening Japan could justify a military response. Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. The news will continue right here on CNBC TV 18. Stay tuned. We're back in a minute with more.